Kroner is exhibiting and here tonight to talk with us. I've had the privilege of taking 4 painting workshops with him, 2 in Italy, 2 here in the States. And, you know, for me personally, he's really, you know, his teaching style, his work, and him and his family just meant so much to me. And it really got me painting. After a long hiatus, it got me working with oil and kind of, and I'm just inspired to be showing his work because I'm hoping it's going to get me going again. But anyway, just such a brilliant thinker about painting, his approach, his use of color, his mastery. He's just got so much information. I know there's some artists in the group. At least 2 people that I know have also been on painting workshops. And if you get the opportunity, it's really kind of a once-in-a-lifetime experience. This is his wife, James Kroner, and his little boy, Johnny, that we're meeting for the first time. So the whole family's here from driving down from Washington. They left at noon today. Sorry, that's like the worst introduction I've ever given. Anyway,
that's perfect.
And then afterwards, he said he'd be really open to questions about his work or anything. So, and he's freshly back from teaching both in Italy and Germany. So I'm sure there's lots of stories there too. But anyway, welcome, James Kroner.
It's really something getting out of the car after 5 hours, spending some time in traffic, walking right through the front door and giving a speech. Go right at home. And also with the little boy, he's not even 2 yet, but he did pretty good. Thank you, Karen. That was a great introduction. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so thrilled to be showing work here at your beautiful gallery like we have in years past. And it's always been a lot of fun with the events that we organize, the workshops, and our time together. So thank you for that. And thank you, AA, also for recording this. She's going to amp up the pressure a little bit more. It's true, we were on the road for about 6 weeks traveling. We were in Europe. We went to Italy for my annual 2-week Italy plein air workshop. Margaret has attended a couple of times, and so has Karen, and so has Cynthia. And there's also a local workshop that we did here a while back. But we were on the road for about 6 months. Italy first for 6 weeks. It feels like 6 months. After Italy, we went to Germany for about 10 days, stayed with some family, and always after the 2-week Italy workshops, they're pretty intensive and it's a lot of work. So it's always nice to take a little break afterwards, do a little traveling, and do some plein air. So that's always nice to do after those intense workshops. So after we got back, I think our European trip was about 4 weeks. We came back for 3 nights, and then we left again for Pismo Beach, California. It's about an 18-hour drive from Washington, where we live. It took about 2 days, and we stayed the night in a hotel. So we're used to being on the road, used to being in travel mode. So I got to do some plein air in Germany after the workshop, and that was such an inspiring experience for me. We always have a lot of great experiences when we go to Europe, but this time there was something special about it. We stayed in a little town, actually it's a well-known travel destination called Rothenburg. Rothenburg Old Taube. It's in northern Bavaria along the romantic road. And we stayed there for, I think, 3 nights and did about 4 days of painting there. And it was just so special for me to just be with my family and be able to focus on doing some painting there. I think it was the first time I was able to just take a breath and clear my head a little bit and do do some plein air. So got a lot of great reference photos, and it was really inspiring. Some of the scenes that we saw, some of the paintings that I did, I was happy with, and I was just very happy with it. It was very inspiring. So once we got home and went to Pismo Beach, it was a family reunion that I went to there. We do it about once a year. It's my mom's side of the family, with her father, who's 93 years old. He's my opa. He also comes from Bavaria, the region that we were. And all my cousins and all their children, so our family got pretty big. And it was nice to be there, nice to be with everyone. I did a plein air down on the beach, and here's a little story for you. I walked down the stairs. It goes down this big cliff and goes out onto this beach. And so there was this cool painting spot that I wanted to get to, and it had a great view. There was the rocks, and to get there, I had to walk around this huge outcropping, this boulder that was coming out of the cliff. And I set up, I painted for about 2 to 3 hours. I got the little painting back here. And yeah, that's the little way of studying.
Plein air of a moving ocean, not easy. Beautiful. We're going to have this in the frame next time you come in.
So, yeah, that's the little one I did down there. About 2.5 hours, I think, and then once I looked up, I looked around me and realized that the tide had come in so far that I was stuck.
Oh, I had that.
Yeah. I could not get back around the way that I came. I looked and I tried to time it to see when the waves go out, if there was a chance for me to go back around. But I had my backpack and I had all my gear with me. I think, the waves were crashing up against that rock, and when it went back out, it was still about waist high, at its lowest point. So I had to go the other way, and I had this image of, them throwing a rope over the side of the cliff. It was pretty exciting, but it was also kind of scary. Because the tide had come way in, and there was nobody else on the beach. I had to jump from rock to rock. There's these big, huge rock kind of platforms coming out from the cliff, and waves would come up and crash up against the rocks. I'd have to kind of climb up here to get away from it, and then time it when when the waves went out to jump to the next rock. And I have a picture of it. I'll show you afterwards. But the last little bit that I had to cross was kind of like this river, because there was a cave up there. So the waves would crash up, and then the river would flow back out. And it was a pretty good current. But I thought that I'd just jump in and cross it. So that's what I did. It went almost to just above my knees, and I crossed it, And my son, Isaac, he's 18 years old. He took a picture of me from up the cliff. And he's a swimmer. He just came back from Hawaii, and he likes to surf. So he had no problem swimming around the rock, and he actually came for me. Just to make sure Dad was okay. So anyways, we got to the other side finally. I was wet from, and I had my gear with me, so we had to climb up the side of this cliff. And a couple of times I had to take my bag and throw it up there so that I can climb up, but we eventually made it out. So I have a story to go with that painting.
So much for the peaceful sea.
Right. It's true. When that swell comes in, that Pacific coast, But I love the energy of the ocean. That's really what draws me to, you know, the wave studies. I've been doing those for a lot of years. Just really fascinated by the waves, the power behind the waves. And it ties a lot into my interest, which is this ongoing thesis since graduate school. It's called The Energy in Nature. And it has a lot to do with, you know, the atmosphere, the weather, rain and wind and storms and fog, and all the changing elements that happen, you know, in the scene. Those are all things that I'm all very, you know, drawn to. And so, you know, the ocean and the waves and the swell is all a part of that. So that was something that's a continual inspiration for me. It's also something that I like to try to incorporate into my work as much as I can. Plein air painting, being outdoors, and painting from life really sets the mood and the tone for my work and for, you know, what I'm interested in. Thank you. So, I went to school at the Academy of Art University. I went to graduate school there. That was in San Francisco. I graduated in 2013. And all the way through graduate school, I was working very, very hard. Even outside of school, it was important to me to paint as much as I could and to try to understand what I was doing and to try to understand where I was going with my work. And a big part of my process is writing. I keep journals, I keep notebooks full of writing, and as I go, I a lot of times look back and, you know, critique my work. I talk about what's working, what's not working, what I like, what I don't like. And it's really, doing this over the years has really helped me to, you know, kind of clarify my direction. And it's helped me to get clarity on, you know, the ideas behind the work. When we got back from our European trip this time, I sat, and once we got home, I wrote a few notes down for myself, and this was kind of like a reminder from this trip that we just had and the plein airs that I had just done. It's a reminder for me to keep in the front of my mind and to kind of focus on. So I just want to read a little portion out of the journal here. So this is post-Italy, post-Germany, a few things. I wrote, see it all at once. The key to painting plein air fast enough is to force yourself to see the whole scene at once. And this is something that had kind of dawned on me as I was working. It's easy for me, and anybody here who has plein air experience probably knows what I'm talking about, to get caught up in the details, to get, you know, to spend a lot of time in one area working it out, all the while keeping in mind that it's a plein air. And with plein air, the idea is to get it done in about 2 hours, maybe 3. Because after that time, the scene changes so much that it's a different scene. You know, the shadows have shifted this way, the light has moved this way, maybe all the clouds are gone, or maybe all the clouds have come back. It's enough time to go by that it's kind of a different scene. trying to stay true to my subject and true to the moment. It's necessary, and this is kind of the idea behind a lot of plein air, is to force the pace and to paint quickly. So I started to get back into this mode of thinking, to see the whole thing at once, to keep myself moving, not to get caught up in the details, not to get caught up in the focal area, because to step back and to see the whole scene at once was for me, it was a revelation at the moment. The other thing I wrote was, let go. Yes, it's about being intentional and building shape for shape. Shape for shape is this idea that we use in plein air. It's something that I teach in my workshops about painting shape for shape. One shape, and then the shape next to it, and then the third, and then the fourth, and building the painting literally, with shapes. Building shape for shape, but I must allow myself to let go and believe. At a certain point, to force the pace and allow my instinct to take over is to trust the process and allow myself to be swept into it. You can tell when the painter is too conscious of what he or she is doing. Allow myself to let go and allow that part of myself to take over. So that is that moment that happens when you're working. Could be in the studio, could be anywhere. I experience it a lot with plein air, and I think that's the point that I'm trying to get to when I set up and I paint a scene, is to be swept away in the moment and to really let go. And yes, it's necessary for me, at least for my process, to stay true to what I'm seeing, but also to allow myself to get swept into the process. Meaning, I'm not overthinking it anymore. I'm not even really conscious totally of what I'm doing. It's just a mode, a state of mind that I get into where time passes and then the painting's done, and I don't even realize it. That's that moment that it can be rare. The more you paint, the more you can achieve it. But that was something that I really wanted to focus on after our trip, after our travels. Moving forward, allowing myself to let go and be swept away in the process. And that is also too. Where you're just, you're not overthinking it, and you trust the process, you believe in yourself, you trust that you can make the painting happen, that you can finish it. And you get into this mode where you're mixing paint and you're applying paint, and I'm not overthinking it anymore, it's just happening. And that's kind of that magical area that I'm trying to get to. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this show at Carnes Gallery. There's quite a few plein airs here and also some studio works. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask.
Why do they call it plein air?
I think it's a French word, and it means in the open air.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think it was established probably early 1800s, when it became more normal to paint outdoors with the impressionists.
Those picnics.
Maybe it came before that. What's that?
Those picnics in the park.
Right.
I remember when they painted, when they started tubing paints, because people used to have to blind their paints. And
Yeah,
once
that's true.
tubes became available, that coincided with that.
Oh, yeah?
You said something about when the light shifts, your time slot runs out. Do you ever start another? I mean, does it ever change from one thing into something else that's also worth painting?
Oh,
Do
you
you
mean
get the
like
same view twice?
on the same canvas?
Yeah, the same set.
Your two paintings.
Like two
One after the other,
canvases.
as you said, it's like the first painting is now gone.
Yeah,
Can you do another one?
yeah, there have been times where I was working on something and the light became very interesting. And it was really about the color and the energy with that. So I would set the painting that I was doing aside, maybe take a smaller panel and go for exactly, the color of the sky or, the atmosphere, something like that. So, yeah, I've done that.
Happy accident.
Happy accidents.
Tell us about your wet on wet technique.
Wet on wet, alla prima. Yeah, all at once,
Is that with oil or acrylic?
Oh, yeah, with oil. All of my plein air is mostly in oil, and the wet on wet technique is this, the idea is that you can very easily layer oil paint. And because of the medium and the quality of it, you can really have a lot of freedom to not only layer it, scrape it away, rub it with your finger, do some finger painting, use your palette knife to scrape, paint and repaint it as many times as you want because it's wet. You can just wipe it down to keep going. But what I generally think about is this two-part idea when I do a plein air. It's the setup, basically, is how I set the painting up. I draw it in very quickly, and then I lay in some of the big shapes and some of the big relationships. A lot of times, and we talk about this all the time in the workshop, we break it down with wet into wet. We break it down into 5 types of light and 4 value planes. So 4 value planes are sky, ground, the upright plane, and then the slanted plane. And the 5 types of light are light and shadow, mid-tone or reflected light, and then dark accent and highlight. And so after I get that initial block in, I want to layer it, and that's more conceptual, I think. That's painting more what I know, what the light is doing, the direction of the light, the quality of the light, and trying to kind of paint that into the scene, trying to capture that. Cynthia, you had a question?
Yeah, I actually have 2. Is there any kind of plein air that is easier for you to let go than another, like ocean or mountains or, any
Yeah.
situation? And then I have a question about that one. Please tell me that was partly finished in the studio.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I would have died doing it.
Yeah, that was,
That's the day.
I'd still be there.
Took longer than 2 hours.
a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Something that Antonio Lopez Garcia would probably do. Go back to the same street corner day after day and paint something this big or bigger. Yeah, I think subject-wise, like you said, the ocean and the waves always, because it's always moving, and there's such energy, such force, behind it, that it's not a still subject. So every every time I look up, it's different. So I do really have to sort of let go and, you know, paint what it feels like. Landscapes, scenes that have great atmosphere to them, you know, like morning or evening paintings when the light is changing, stuff like that when the fog is coming in.
Yeah, clouds would reflect the ocean, so I would think clouds would be kind of the same feeling in a way.
Yeah,
It doesn't stay the same.
right. Yeah. Yeah, but I think, you know, trying to get to that state is always always what I'm trying to get to.
The fact that you're standing in front of that one.
This one?
No, the street light, I mean, the skill in all of these is breathtaking, that's very magical. Does that reveal itself, or do you, I mean, you layer that light over, or is it just emerge? I mean, it's so perfectly realistic, evocative, you know, but, yeah, how do you,
Thank you.
how do you let that happen?
Actually set up on a street corner at night, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Number two?
Yeah, that was, I forgot the name of that piazza. It's one of the main piazzas in Rome. But, yeah, I think that abstract quality and, you know, painting the feeling of it, the feeling of the light, to me, that's what's real. That's what realism is. As opposed to, you know, copying it. And some artists do that, and that's totally fine. That's something that they're interested, but for me, it's always felt more honest with me, more sincere to go after the way that it feels.
Is that built up of layers, or is it?
Yeah, you know, it's starting out with big, broad shapes. Painting, the general idea is to paint big to small, dark to light, thin to thick, back to front, those kind of ideas.
I have a question.
Sure.
Thin to thick, so you're going lean to fat, and you start out, you use straight turpentine and do washes, and then gradually, what medium do you use?
I use mineral spirits. I use Gamsol most of the time. Sometimes I'll use liquid if I need it to dry fast, but actually in this one here in the corner, I used the artist medium. It's like 7 parts turpentine, 1 part stand oil, 1 part Tamar varnish. It's like the old masters mixture. But for most of these, I just use Gamsol to thin the paint down. And I do work a little bit thinner in the beginning, so I can keep control, and so that I can layer it when I get to that part where, you know, when I feel confident enough to lay in the light and to push the contrast, then I can start to mix up my paint a bit thicker and lay it on.
But I like the way you left them, the lean, the thin foreground.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't want to cover that up, yeah.
Yeah, originally I was planning on covering that part up, and so I wrote there's a note to myself right here that I wrote with pencil. Anyway, you can see it there.
Yeah, but you're glad you didn't cover it, aren't you? glad?
Happy accident.
Yeah.
James, I probably asked you this years ago, but who were some of the artists that you looked at and studied? I know you, especially you know, as a younger artist, you're still a young artist, but, you know, in your early days, you were probably really looking at a lot of old master works, and I don't know if you still do that today, but who are the artists that are in the back of your mind, maybe when you work, or the people that you really looked and thought a lot about their work, if you don't mind me asking?
Contemporary artists or?
Any at all, I was just curious.
Yeah, starting with the old masters, I really was drawn to Rembrandt, and I looked at his work a lot. And anytime, you know, when we were in Italy, I got to see them up close. But I was just fascinated with the way that he layered paint and the way that his portraits came alive. Antonio Mancini was a huge inspiration for me. He still is, but I studied his work very closely for a lot of years and was really inspired by his work. He did mostly figurative and portraits. But that didn't matter to me, even though my interest was, it was my surroundings, and I lived in the city, and so that was what I had access to. And so it didn't matter that he painted mostly portraits. I really looked, you know, at his work, the way that he layered it. Sargent was a big one. Had a lot of books on Sargent, and the Impressionists. I really loved the Impressionists.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jane? Oh,
Yeah.
When you're painting and you're cranking out paintings, do you see one that's so special that you pull it aside and not save it for something?
I have done that in the past. Yeah, I have done that. And I have several. I mean, I have a few pieces at home that I've kept.
What's your favorite painting in this room?
This room? That's a good one.
And do you hope it doesn't snow?
Well, gosh,
they're all
it's probably the hardest question.
That was actually. What's it called?
James, what's the title of that one?
Was it Abstraction of a Steam Vent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like that one.
Yeah, I love the plein airs and just being outdoors and painting from life. So I try to take that energy with me into the studio and all those ideas, that feeling into the studio. So I probably couldn't pick a favorite that I would say, like the plein airs were the ones that I really enjoyed the most where I was in my element.
Do you ever paint more on your painting when you come?
Yeah, sure, I do. Yeah.
Some people say no.
Right.
You lose the freshness.
Oh yeah, I have no problem with that. You can lose the freshness and start to overwork it very easily. There's really something about being set up on location in the moment that forces you to sort of stay true to it. And when I get into the studio, it's easy for me to, so I have to be aware of that. You know, I take a reference photo or two and treat it the same way. Just glance at it and try to get the impression, the feel of it, and not overwork it. Just get it to a point where I can call it done. So,
Well, that was fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Jane. Thank you.